Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
It's the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Prograis.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 327 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as ever by former heavyweight world title challenger Mr. Fast Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, my man. How about you?
Always good when speaking with you, Eddie. That is the truth. Again, this week's show is going to be a little bit bite-sized, a little bit like last week's show. There's not too much to review. There's pretty much one card. There's not too much to preview. There's pretty much one card. And, of course, we will have our special guest, which will be John Ryder, who has an upcoming fight next month against Daniel Jacobs in London. What a amazing fight that's going to be. So, yeah, let's dive straight into the review part. We're going to start here in Panama. This one took place in Panama at the Centro. I'm not even going to start with the pronunciation. The Centro de Convenciones Vasco Núñez de Balboa. I tried my best. Anyway, on that card there we had Gabriela Fundora, the sister of Sebastian Fundora. She picked up a win, an 8th round unanimous decision over 8 2-minute rounds against Natalie Delgado, now 8-5 with a draw. Delgado down in the 5th round. She lost absolutely every round, and of course that 5th she lost a 10-8. So Fundora now 5-0 with 2 KOs. I believe, or 3 KOs. Moving out now to the Turning Stone Resort and Casino in Verona, New York, USA. This one was on ESPN. It was also on Sky Sports. So over here we had pretty much, I'm just going to talk about the main event. I didn't see much of the undercard. I don't know if you did, Eddie, so if you did, then you can speak on that if you like in a moment. But yeah, Joe Smith now 28-3, a KO in round 9 against Steve Jeffrard, a late replacement, now 18-3. It was for Smith's WBO World Light Heavyweight title. I didn't really take many notes during the fight. I obviously watched it live. It was good to kind of get big-time boxing back on TV, certainly in the UK. It seems like it's been a little bit of a while now. I don't think there's been much in January. I don't think there's been much since Christmas, really, if anything. So yeah, it was good to see everything back on TV, back on Sky. I like Joe Smith, obviously. I said that many times. Really one of my favourite fighters to watch. Entertainment-wise, and I also just like the guy. He's a very cool, likeable guy. But yeah, I mean, he completely bossed the fight. I liked his jabs. He got a little bit busted up himself in terms of, I think, maybe a couple of cuts here and there, but he won every round. He got the stoppage. It was expected, really. I thought it'd probably come a bit early. It didn't come as early as I expected, but I mean, yeah, it was a comfortable victory. I didn't know anything about Steve Jeffrard. I'd only really heard of his name on Fight Week, which may sound bad from a hardcore boxing fan kind of point of view, but I heard a lot about him, in the amateurs. Apparently he was a really good amateur. He come up against Michael Hunter a couple of times in the amateurs, and Michael Hunter seemed to be his boogeyman. He couldn't beat Michael Hunter, but he pretty much beat everyone else. I actually know someone, and I can't really say the name, but I know someone who put roughly about $1,000 on Steve Jeffrard, and it being, various outcomes of the fight, but not Joe Smith Jr. winning. I know someone that put money on Jeffrard to win on points, Jeffrard to just win, a draw, about $1,000, which of course they had absolutely nothing, no return on that bet. Everything went completely wrong. So yeah, some people were confident with Jeffrard, Eddie, and I think I incorrectly said that Stephen Edwards was the trainer or manager or something. I think it was actually who was it in the corner, man? I think it was Kevin Cunningham, if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, what did you make of the fight? I know you watched it.
No, it was interesting. The guy Jeff Rod wasn't too bad. He wasn't like what you would expect in a late replacement. I felt like he came in with the way he fights anyway. He does the kind of the Winky Wright style, hands up, and he was effective at times. Landing jabs and the odd shot, but it was just, I think, too few and far between. And Joe Smith, being the guy that he is and the puncher that he is too, just kept, and it's funny enough because he kept the volume up, which is, I guess that's normally his thing anyway, but I think he throws more heavy shots one at a time. But he seemed to be throwing combinations. He was putting more jabs out there. He was definitely doing a better job than I ever thought he was going to do as a stalker, kind of like boxer puncher. That's what I think he was trying to lean toward. And Jeff Rod was, I think, a little too much on the back foot at times. And I don't think he was busy enough to keep up. Even though he did some good things and landed some good counter shots here and there, thought he landed a good right hand. I think it was early in the fight, might have been even the first round, like an overhand or it might have been a straight right, whatever. That it didn't hurt him or anything, but it was a good shot. It was at the right time. But pretty much the rest of it was all Joe Smith. He was just, I don't know, he was too busy. And then eventually his puncher power, you see in the fight at one point, it was, I think, fairly early, maybe the fourth or fifth round, and he was catching Jeff Rod with a few shots. And, Jeff Rod would put his hands out and like shake his head and all that. And, a lot of times when I see stuff like that, I used to do stuff like that when I was really confident and I felt like I could, I have control of the fight. But I just never really saw that with him. So it kind of may have been like a nervous reaction to what was going on. But all in all, I digress from the point. All in all, Joe Smith, good job. You know what I mean? He put hands on him. He didn't do any of those things like trying to do the shoulder roll, trying those things that really aren't a part of his style. He just, you know what I mean? I think he just handled himself, really well, trying to be not trying to be, but being a boxer puncher, taking care of business, and eventually getting the stoppage. The guy Jeff Rod had a lot of experience from the amateurs, good technical fighter, and knew how to survive to it, so to speak, until late when Joe Smith just put the hands on him a little bit too much. But like I said, all in all, Joe Smith Jr., really good performance.
Yeah, so like I say, that is it for the review part of the show. There wasn't too much to go over, as I said. It's now time to welcome our special guest on this week's podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Islington icon. It is, of course, Mr. John Ryder. John, welcome back on the show, my man.
Well, afternoon, such like that. Thank you for having me, and that's why I keep coming back.
There we go. So, John, we last caught up back in September. It was just after your last fight, of course. How have things been since then? How was your Christmas and all the rest of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's been quiet in the sense that we was hoping to get a big fight before the year was out. Didn't materialise. But we sat down with Eddie, obviously started December, and said we needed something big, and I mean, lo and behold, he's delivered. But it was nice, obviously going into Christmas knowing this fight was looming, but just a bit slow in announcing it. So it was a bit frustrating at times, but I mean, luckily a week into the new year, and we've got the fight announced and we've got a date set.
Excellent, man. And we also haven't spoken since, I guess, the king, really, of your division. Canelo beat Caleb Plant and therefore eliminated the last remaining champion, which led Canelo to becoming undisputed. I always find your take on fights quite interesting. What did you take from that fight there, John?
I thought it was a good performance from Canelo. I don't think he looked himself. I think he lacked a bit of sharpness. But having said that, he said himself after, he said he's had a busy year, and I suppose we can all expect that. He's done a crazy thing in the last year, hasn't he? Do you know what I mean? With Smith last December 18th, Yildirim, I think early February, Billy Joe May, and then he's absolutely cleared up as a division in under a year. So he's taking liberties, the fella, isn't he? But he's done well, mate, and hopefully he'll start next year as he needs to go on, and hopefully it'll be a bit more clarity in what he's doing, and and we'll know what we're doing at super middleweight. Because hopefully, if he is going up to 175, hopefully a few of the belts will get freed up at super middle, and we can start cracking on fighting for titles back.
Yeah, definitely.
In the division.
Definitely. And it's slightly unrelated, but I don't know if you knew, your former opponent as well, Mike Guy, back in November, just stopped a prospect who was on the come-up. So that was good for him as well. I
know. Do you know what? I read the report. The come forward Mike Guy. I thought we're not talking about the same fellow here. the aggressive come forward. I thought not a chance. That's not who I boxed. But, no, do you know what? Fair play to him. Listen, what is he? He's 40 now, isn't he, Mike Guy? And listen, he's putting in performances like that. It's a fair play, and do you know what? It only looks better on me having beat him well.
Yeah, absolutely. Naughty 40 Mike Guy. Your next fight's been penciled in, like you said. Obviously, it's a big one. And as you said, Eddie Hearn has delivered here. You'll be taking on former two-time middleweight world champion Danny Jacobs, February 12th at the Alexandra Palace. How important was it for you, John, to get home advantage in this fight?
Well, it's something I wasn't really expecting. It's not something I was holding hope for. Obviously, I've not boxed in London since... I think it was November 2018. So it's nice to be boxing back in UK and London especially. But I mean, to get the fight to London was going to be a good thing. But to have it in the heart of North London, Alexandra Palace is unbelievable. Stuff dreams are made of. So for me to really kickstart my career again in Ali Pali on home soil against a great fighter like Danny Jacobs is a dream come true.
And correct me if I'm wrong, because my memory is pretty useless, but you were ringside for Canelo Jacobs, if I'm not mistaken, no?
Yeah, I boxed on the undercard. I boxed Bilal Akaway. And me and Tony were sat ringside to watch the main event, and it was a great show to be a part of and actually sit there and watch and embrace the chaos of the Mexican fans and enjoy a good fight.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure at the time you probably had your eyes more focused on Canelo. Obviously, you have seen Jacobs up close. How much do you rate Jacobs at this point, John? I mean, what are you expecting from him? Obviously, we all know his miracle backstory, his great achievements, but since that Canelo loss, which was an excellent performance from him, by the way, he hasn't really looked his old self. I mean, he's moved up a weight, obviously, to super middle. The two fights he's had, he hasn't looked great against Chavez, and he arguably lost to Gabe Rosado. He's coming off a real long layoff here, and obviously having to make that long trip from the States.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny enough, I was talking to Tony about it today. I mean, he's had a long layoff, but I've only had one more fight than him in that time. Where he's not boxed in a year. I think he had a fight. He boxed Chavez end of 2019, I think, and then I think he boxed early 2020 against Rosado or late 2020.
Late 2020, yeah.
Yeah, late 2020. Sorry. So I mean, he's had over a year out of the ring, competitive boxing. But I mean, in that time, I've only had one more fight in him, which is an odd one. But it seems like I've been so much more active.
Yeah. Obviously, it's a non-title bout. I remember for a long time you were linked with the David Lemieux fight, which, like this fight here, was a very dangerous fight and also not for a title. I want to ask you, John, what means more to you personally? Is it fighting for a world title or just simply fighting against the biggest names, but perhaps for no belt on the line?
Well, I'm told and I'm hoping that we can get this for a final eliminator for the WBA. So
should be, yeah.
I think that's ongoing. So fingers crossed that'll get sorted in the coming weeks. But I think just fighting the best fighting the best, and the winner goes on. Do you know what I mean? And that's more important to me. Obviously, I want to win a world title. I've still got dreams and aspirations to achieve in this sport. But for me, I want to fight the biggest names in this sport, and currently. Fighters that are not tied up and things up and coming. Danny Jacobs is that.
Yeah, I mean, as we said earlier, Canelo at the minute with all the belts, I mean, it doesn't provide opportunities for everyone. They're few and far between. I want to ask as well, 1 week before your fight, a great all-domestic fight, I'm sure you'll be watching it, Eubank and Liam Williams. Who wins that one for you, John? How do you see it going?
Yes, I mean, that's a great fight. And I mean, you've got to you've got to favour the work rate of Liam Williams, but then you've got the punch power and the skill set of Eubank. So it's a real 50-50. It's a hard to split them. Obviously, Liam Williams now training with Adam Booth in the same gym as Harlem Eubank. I think it's a strange setup, but I don't know how that works. But no, I just think for the fans, it's a real treat. And I think although Eubank's been a world champion and been in against good fighters, Liam Williams can match him for that. He's been in there against the likes of Andrade. He's been in with good fighters himself, and he has mixed it at that world level.
He's sitting on the fence.
I'm right on the fence at this one, yeah.
You do love a fence.
Yeah.
All right, John. And my final real question, if you've got one, share your prediction with us if you have one. February 12th, Ali Pali, you opposite Danny Jacobs.
Well, the most important thing is to come away with a win, whether that comes by knockout, early, mid or late, or points win. Just as long as my hand's raised by any means, then just favour me to win.
I'm sure absolutely everyone wants to see you victorious here. And just finally, John, if you've got any closing words before we let you go, I love throwing it over to you and leaving us, or letting you leave us with a nice little closing message.
No, thanks for all the support the last couple of years. I know they've been quiet. I've not enjoyed it too much myself either, but 2022 we're looking to kick it off with a bang, February 12th, and hopefully bring big time boxing back to North London and get a great win.
There we go. Listen, John, it's always a pleasure speaking with you, my man. Best of luck for February 12th, and I'm sure we'll speak sometime afterwards.
Brilliant, Joe. Thank you, mate.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part of the show. Just one thing to go over as it stands. If anything develops from now to the end of the show, I will mention it on the outro. So one piece of news. It takes place, this fight, on the undercard of Lee Wood and Michael Conlan, which goes down on March 12th. We're going to see a ring return for Terry Harper, former world champion, knocked out by Alicia Baumgardner in her last fight. She lost her title. She's moving up in weight here to, I think it's lightweight now. She's moving up there. She fights here for the vacant WBA Intercontinental Lightweight title against Heather Hardy, by the way. So it should be a really good fight, that one, actually. It's a good test, especially first fight back after being knocked out brutally like she was. I really like that fight. And I really like the main event, Lee Wood and Michael Conlan. I'm shocked that Lee Wood is the underdog in that fight. But anyways, it's going to be a great night of boxing. It's shaping up for there, March 12th on DAZN in Nottingham. Moving now to the preview part of the show. We're going to start here in Kazakhstan. It's not Triple G. It is Andrei Sorokin, who... some people will remember lost his O to John Ryder back in 2018. Good fighter, southpaw, gave John Ryder a lot of problems. I mean, he was probably probably winning the fight actually, until he got stopped by Ryder. I think it was with a body shot. But he fights here for the vacant WBO International Middleweight title against a guy called Miriam Nursultanov, who's 15-0. It's over 10 rounds there. Sorokin 19-1 with a draw. But now this is the big one. Moving out now to Atlantic City, New Jersey, a place I've been with the man I host the show with, Mr. Eddie Chambers. It's taking place at the Borgata Hotel Casino. Let's start with the undercard, actually. We've got Evan Holyfield, the son of Evander. He is 8-0 in a 6-rounder against Chris Rollins, who's 5-3 with a draw. We've also got Tugstot Nyambayar, who has a record of 12-2 in a 10-rounder against Sakaria Lucas, who's 25-1. Again, Nyambayar, as we know, boxed Gary Russell Jr., who we had on last week's show. He boxed him for the world title and lost. I think that was last year, wasn't it, I believe, or a year before that. So he's on the undercard of Gary Russell's fight. I think it's the chief support. We've got Subriel Matias, who's 17-1. I remember, Eddie, you watching his I think it was his last fight or whatever. 17 KOs from his 17 wins. He's got the one loss, which he lost on points. But yeah, I believe we reviewed his last fight. I can't remember who he boxed now, but he's back in a 12-rounder against Petros Anyan, who is 16-2 with 2 draws. That's a over 12 rounds. Do you remember Subriel Matias at all, Eddie, or not?
Yeah. I think he's the guy that's real generous with his punches. And you know what? He has a different kind of style with how he is. His hand speed's not bad. It's actually pretty good. Accuracy, I think he has real good pop too. Yeah, I mean, I liked him. I remember I was saying I liked him. It was just like kind of a different kind of box. I don't know. His style was just different. You know what I mean? It's hard for me to explain. I mean, I watched, different guys fight, but I really did like his style. I like what he brought to the table.
Okay. Well, yeah, I've just seen that he's actually fighting the one guy that beat him back in 2020. It's funny because this guy beat him on February 22nd, 2020. He's rematching him on January 22nd, 2022. There's a lot of similar numbers in there. But, yeah, he gets in with Petros and Ananyan, the guy's name is. And, yeah, it was a unanimous decision, but very, very tight. 94-95, 94-95, both in favour of Ananyan. And 93-96 again for Ananyan. So unanimous, but only by 1 point on two of the cards. And that was because of a knockdown in the 7th round where Matias was on the deck. So he gets a chance at redemption here. But the main event, Gary Russell Jr., 31-1. That one loss, I think it was a majority decision or a split decision to Lomachenko. He's here, of course, defending his WBC featherweight world title against Mark Magsayo of the Philippines, 23-0. Manny Pacquiao calls him his protege. He's scored one of the best knockouts in 2021, that brutal knockout over Julio Ceja, a fight that he was probably losing. Yeah, so he's hungry, he's proud, he's in the mood for this fight here. He's gonna give it his all. I have no doubt in that. Gary Alan Russell. That's his middle name. All the Gary Russell brothers. It is confusing, but Gary Russell Jr. Eddie. Slightly different preparation for this one. He's coming off his career longest layoff. It's almost 2 years out the ring. He's been very inactive at the best of times, but this is really it's even longer than he's ever been out the ring before, and he's having to do most of this training camp with his younger brothers helping him prepare, which I don't think is out of the ordinary for him. It's a family unit, but his dad has been massively absent for this training camp, which is the first time in his entire career that's happened, because his dad, very unfortunately, was hospitalized with diabetes, had to have his foot amputated, and hasn't been much of a help in the preparations, in the build-up. But I'm hearing he's kind of getting a bit better now, and he's been a part of camp towards the end. But we had Gary Russell on last week. Hopefully he wins a fight, but it's a good fight. It's a dangerous fight. This guy throws a lot of punches. He can outwork you.
100%. Coming back with, like you said, off a 2-year layoff, I'm obviously pretty sure it has something to do with his father's issues. You know what I mean? Not wanting to be, too involved with boxing too much without his dad. But and on top of that, coming back fighting a guy like this with 2 years off is kind of tough. This dude is obviously looking to improve his position
and become a hero, hungry, become a Filipino hero. Yeah.
And exactly, he wants to, like Manny Pacquiao. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of pressure, on Russell here. Now, I don't say a lot of pressure on the other guy. I think there's more pressure on Gary Russell because he's expected to win. And, but 2 years out, yes, that's tough. And that could be bad. But for guys like him, who is a sharpshooter, who pretty much, I think, lives in the gym, from what I understand, constantly working on his craft, has his brothers around him. And I know there's got to be some degree of sibling rivalry between them. You know what I mean? You want to say I'm still the best Russell out here, but so I think he's still probably staying really, busy in the gym at least. I mean, we all know though that being busy in the gym and working out hard and training and sparring is not the same as fighting. So, and of course, I mean, there's sparring that you can get to prepare, and you can have all kind of different little things like that to help you get ready. But it's still going to be an uphill, I don't say uphill battle, but it's going to be tough. The first one coming back, such a big event, and a tough fight, to boot. So, I mean, I'm hoping, Gary Russell's able to do what he's supposed to do and take care of business, but it's not going to be an easy task.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Eddie. Magsayo as well always seems to bring the excitement. Obviously still undefeated, but he's had very, very close shaves. Obviously, as I mentioned last time out, being dropped, being down on the cards against Julio Ceja. After dropping Ceja, by the way, in the first round. Ceja was down in the first round. Magsayo was down in round 5. He was down on the cards, and he knocks him out in the 10th round brutally. It was a 12-round fight last time. The fight before that, he knocked out Pablo Cruz. The fight before that, he won a split decision. There was, I think, blood all over the place in that fight there. He's had a few fights, he's been down, a couple times as well. He's always in exciting fights. But, yeah, Gary Russell seems to be a guy who, it's weird, but he doesn't ever really look too ring rusty, if any, at all. So, I'm expecting him to come in here. I'm expecting him to win the fight. Of course, he's the clear favourite for me. I think the odds actually are a little bit too close for my liking. But, I think he wins the fight, hands down. But is he going to look like he's lost a step? It's been the longest layoff. We haven't seen him out the ring for this long. And Magsayo, coming off that brilliant win, he's got a bit of momentum behind him now. It's this is his world title fight. I mean, he has a chance here to become the next Nonito Donaire, the next Manny Pacquiao. You just know he's going to give it absolutely everything he's got. So I'm really looking forward to it. Again, it's back-to-back weekends where we've seen world title action. Good fights. Joe Smith, obviously, his opponent. It was a late replacement. What can you do? It was supposed to be against Callum Johnson. It would have been a brilliant fight if that did take place. It's not Joe Smith's fault that fight fell through. Then the very next week, here we are with this one here. So boxing is starting to heat up again, and I'm certainly here for it. But anyway, that is it though for the preview part of the show. Again, as I said, this show has been very, very bite-sized. The final thing for me to do before we wrap it all up is to come in with the outro, which I'll do in just a few seconds. Okay, and this wraps up episode 327 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A huge thank you to our special guest this week, the Islington icon, Mr. John Ryder. The biggest thanks of all, though, goes out to you, the listeners. But that's about everything from myself. Enjoy your weekends, people. Stay safe, and we shall see you all again next week.